breathing is always the abdominal breathing that we need to set in so that everything else can rest on it and develop. I think we did the exercise of the three different level of breath, feeling the abdominal, the thoracic, and the upper thoracic. So all three of them can work independently. We see a lot of people that have just a very shallow kind of upper thoracic breathing. It's even very limited, and where the diaphragm barely move and the ribs don't move at all either, and they have a very short breath. Some people sometimes have a bit more of a thoracic breathing, but very little abdominal. Or also the opposite, people who do a little bit of meditation, a little bit of training will develop the abdominal breathing, but completely forget about the thoracic and the upper thoracic. So everything here stops moving and they only focus on the movement of the diaphragm. And even at that, sometimes, because there's so much tension with the lower back, they just have a fairly limited abdominal breathing, but for lack of better understanding, they think that's what they should be doing. So all these three can be used independently. For Qigong, what we want to get is to develop the full body breathing and even more so understand what is that looping movement, so to speak, that allows for it to fully develop. And what's interesting is that it also ties in very well with the notion of the microcosmic orbit, the lifting up of the energy through the spine and the flowing down through the renmai. So the dumai and renmai circulation. The first step for the abdominal breathing is the posture. And the posture is always the key element to be able to make it because it gives us the structure and it gives us the space so that the muscle can move at the better capacity, giving us all the amplitude that we need inside the body for the lungs to breathe in and take more space. In order for the diaphragm to be able to push down, so just as a reminder, the diaphragm is that big muscle that's tied up through the rib cage on a horizontal plane, and it's shaped a little bit like a bowl that's upside down. So it ties up through the ribs all the way down, but it also goes up inward. And the way the muscle is made is a little bit in the shape of a parachute, if you want, and where the center is a cartilage. And the muscle fiber attached to that center, the harder center, and the muscle on the side are linear towards the rib. So when they contract, they become shorter, which bring that harder cartilage downward. So all the different parts in the front, the side, and the back, when they become shorter, they pull down that center. The lungs are negative pressured inward, and so when the diaphragm pulls down, the lungs start to expand because they're inside a regulated pressure zone, and so that's why the air is inhaled. And that's why also after when we open up the ribs, we create again more space, and that's why we're inhaling. So that's how the lungs function. And that pressure pushes the organ within the abdomen. Now what's important to understand also in this is that all the digestive organs are like inside a balloon. That balloon can change shape, but it cannot be compressed into a smaller volume. So that's where the structure becomes important. Because if my structure is too tight one way or the other, my balloon is already held in place and doesn't have any space to change shape. Because it's already held in a tight spot, the diaphragm cannot push on it any more than that. So that's why the breathing doesn't go any lower. But if I have a nice relaxed posture, and particularly having the good position for the pelvic bowl, allow for this bowl shape of the pelvic bowl to be able to receive a lot more of the mass of the organ downward before they actually start to get pushed front and back and side. So the first element is really to find that spot on the sit bone. Simply by having the right posture, right away we feel the diaphragm can go lower. Relaxing a little bit the tension we might have around the abdominal muscle, around the back, and we can feel also that kind of the gravity center is being relaxed or being pulled downward rather than keeping it around the stomach area. Now, if you tense up a little bit the muscle and everything in the back, we kind of feel that the center mass comes up and the balance is a little bit flimsy. We don't feel as connected to the ground, whereas if we relax, we kind of feel more pressure on the sit bone, we feel more connected to the chair, and we don't feel as out of balance if we move just the upper part of the body, and we can move quite a lot more, feeling that center mass being lower. So already with this, it allows for less work also for the diaphragm, because it doesn't have to push against something from the get-go. It allows it to be able to go a little bit lower without finding something to push against, so it doesn't have to contract as hard. And once it starts to feel the mass of the organ, because it's more relaxed, the organ accept to be pushed down because they can expand, at least in the front at first, and then the back and everything else. So once the diaphragm starts, once the organ are lower and the diaphragm start to push, the first encounter with that balloon, when we'll push, will be to feel in the front. So that group of organs, because the abdominal muscle are a lot softer, that's where the expansion start to happen first. And if the abdominal muscle are a little too weak and that there's no tensegrity or balanced tension, then we just have the abdomen that inflates and usually comes in with a little bit of tension in the back. So we have a big belly and then we exhale and the breathing kind of stops there, which is already a good start for a lot of people. But because we want to go a little bit further, we need to take an extra step. So we want